Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to my library tour for 2022. A visual record of all the books that I have on my shelves, but also all the books that I'm thinking back on, the books of yesteryear that I don't have anymore, but that I did once have. Uh, you'll have to pardon the downtrodden little bean in the background, but it's a very cloudy, very oppressively rainy day. It's not always pouring, but the rain is always in the air, so and Frida hates the rain. She absolutely hates it. She hates even its existence as a philosophical reality. So she's been sort of down in the dumps all day. But we're going to manage. We've got a little bit of dodgy light here. There's virtually no good natural light. But I've got the books called up here, and we're going to go through a few of those books that are missing. A few books from the Library of the Lost. And we'll start with this one by Peter Wells. This is Barbarians to Angels. And it's a study of. Can I put it on the other side? Maybe she's not. Yeah, that's much better. Let's hope she doesn't turn her head. This is his look at the so-called Dark Ages, where he reconsiders them. This is from like 25 years ago. This is a popular thing. Some of you may have seen in your new release section of your bookstore a book called The Bright Ages. That again was the same kind of thing, a riposte against the normal characterization of the Dark Ages as a benighted era full of plague and misery and hunger and whatnot. Historians periodically like to go back and show how that isn't true, how that is largely a facile simplification of historians looking back at the Renaissance and thinking, well, the Renaissance was consciously studying the glories of Greece and Rome, so whatever came between those two great bright spots must be really dark. When actually that wasn't true. There was quite a bit of great artwork, as you can see on this cover here, quite a bit of great literature. I always like books like this. The only thing I don't like about them is the requisite part of the introduction where the author says no one's done this before. Obviously, you could put a list of these things going back 300 years where authors have done that. Then this next one is by William Seymour. It is a classic. It's been reprinted many, many times. I don't have a copy, but the next time I find one, even in paperback, I will grab it. This is Battles in Britain. 1066 to the 18th century. So not covering anything later than that, but covering all the way up to the Civil Wars and whatnot, and starting with the two great signature battles of 1066. And this has lots and lots of, it has expert, granular, moment by moment, movement by movement breakdowns of what actually happened in those battles. But it also has a lot of the contextual background, the social background there. It's a really, really good work of popular military history, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. Don't know why I got rid of it, but I definitely, it has had many, many reprintings, so I will certainly find it. Then this next one is a Newbery Award winner. This is a YA book that is just so good. It is just so good. You probably know it. It's by Kate DiCamillo, and it's because of Winn, Dixie. And the only reason that I don't have a copy of this book is because I don't like this cover. It's as simple as that. I don't like this cover. This book has I think the current cover that this has is much, much better. I keep meaning the next time I'm at a Barnes & Noble to just go in and buy a copy of that paperback. I would gladly do that. This is a story about a young girl who finds a dog. She's on an errand to go to the grocery store, and she finds a dog. She names the dog Winn, Dixie, and the dog changes her life by giving her the courage to ask a whole bunch of questions, to make a whole bunch of changes, to address a whole bunch of things in her life that she's wanted to address for a while. And gradually, magically, as the book goes on, Winn, Dixie gives that kind of courage to a lot of people. It's an absolutely enchanting, instant YA classic, just an instant children's classic. I read it when it first came to bookstores, and I knew immediately this is going to be beloved by everyone. This is going to win a major award. It won the Newbery, and it's going to be loved by everyone. Everyone's going to love this. Can't speak to the movie. I've never actually seen the movie. The cover of the edition that I scanned here is disfigured by a sticker about the movie. I will fix that. I will go into a bookstore and buy a new copy of Because of Winn, Dixie. If I remember correctly, the current paperback cover that it has in the U.S. edition is lovely. And that's what I want. Then this next one, well, I'm never going to see this in a bookstore. I would have to find this used. This is Between Acts by Robert Merrill. Let me see what we do here. We have very dodgy light here because of the overcast day. But this is a memoir of the world of opera, all of the backstage stories that this opera buff and singer knew quite well, not just about opera singers, but about the whole of the entertainment world and how it worked. This was written for Bob Merrill. I mean, he was a great raconteur, but he didn't really know. The credit here on the cover is with Robert Safran. I don't know if you can make that out. Robert Safran did a lot more than withing in this book, and unfortunately, it gives the anecdotes a very shallow narrative tone, I guess, is the way to put it. The anecdotes, when you read the way they were rendered by Robert Safran, you get a different impression of Bob Merrill than he actually was, than the person that he actually was. Maybe it's the tone that he wanted. Maybe there was a lot more collaboration in this book than I actually think there was, but one way or another, it's an odd reading experience. If you know anything about Robert Merrill, you will find this oddly disjointed. But since nobody alive today knows anything about Robert Merrill, you probably won't have that experience. Instead, this will be a lot of funny anecdotes. Take them all with a grain of salt, right? Because they're one entertainer to about other entertainers, which means a cat fight. It means you can't trust them completely, but a lot of them are very, very entertaining. A little bit on the ribald side, some of them. Just be prepared. Okay, well, as long as we're on the subject of hot and heavy material, this is a book by Lisa Kleypas. This is an old version of it. I don't think it looks like this anymore if it's still in print. Lisa Kleypas is a romance author, and she's a really well-loved romance author, so I don't doubt that this might be in print, but it won't have this cover. I don't think. This is Blue-Eyed Devil, and the little title there is A Dare to Fall in Love, because this is about a man. I forget, I'm blanking now, I'm having a psychological moment, because both the protagonist, the man in this book and the woman in this book, both have absurd romance names. I don't remember what those names are. Something on the level of absurdity as if he were called Rocket and she were called Fuel. Something like that. Just absurd. Names that no one would have outside of a romance novel. But it's the story of two different sides of it's a contemporary romance, as you can tell. And it's the story of two different sides of the oil industry in America. One of which is generational and very blue blood, and the other is represented by our male main character, who sort of makes it on his own and is a kind of a feral millionaire, and naturally falls in love with a daughter of that older world, of that privileged generational Bush-style world. I liked it a lot. I wish I could come. I don't think I would like the new cover. A lot of Lisa Kleypas's new books, when they're reissues of older romances, tend to have covers that I think are sort of spiritless. This is not spiritless. It's kind of dumb. What's he doing out there without a shirt on? But it's not spiritless. It's got a flair to it that I would like to keep. So I'll have to keep an eye out for this mass market paperback if I ever go to such a place that would sell such a thing. Then this next one is an ARC that I got and scanned. This is, I believe, Greg James's debut novel. It's called Buffalo Lockjaw. And it's the title refers colloquially to a kind of cultural thing in Buffalo, New York, and in the area of that whole upper arc of America, where Buffalo Lockjaw is how men can't really talk. They can't really talk to each other. They are very closed off emotionally. So that's the colloquial definition of the Buffalo Lockjaw that's referred to in the title. This is a story, I believe, probably pretty autobiographical. The main character seemed to me like a stand-in for Greg Ames. I think this was Greg Ames's debut novel, and I don't know that he's written anything else. I've never read anything else by him. This was really good. The story of a 28-year-old man who goes back home because his mother is suffering from advanced dementia, even though she's only in her 50s. She has really bad Alzheimer's, even though she's in her 50s, and it's only going to get worse. So this young man is thinking about killing her, thinking about, a compassionate suicide. An assisted suicide of some sort or other. So fairly heavy material. There are some funny bits in here. It's a well-done debut novel. I always wonder about these. It's hideously designed, of course. You wouldn't buy that sort of thing voluntarily. But I always wonder about these kind of debut novels. I mean, they show up all the time. There are debut novel writers like this in every season. And I always wonder what they go on to do. Half of them, 2/3 of them. Do they go on to get some sort of teaching job? Do they marry a woman who's got a really good career and they just sort of fiddle around with their writing for the rest of their lives? Or how many? I always wonder. I've often sort of talked about this here over wine and calzones in this room, wondering if maybe it's not so much that getting your first novel written is the task that separates the men from the boys, so to speak, separates the wheat from the chaff, that it's only the ones who really are writers who will get that first novel written. I've often theorized in this room, when a little boozy, that really it's the publication of your first novel that separates the wheat from the chaff. Okay, you're a published novelist. Your novel is in bookstores. You can walk into a bookstore and see it. You get a few interviews, maybe you do a reading at Politics and Prose or whatnot. Then what? Then what happens? I've often made a point that is when you find out whether or not you're a novelist. Not whether or not you can get it into a bookstore, but whether or not you can keep going. Whether or not you have the yen for invention. And I don't know. All of that huge digression will look a little silly if Greg Ames has 10 books that he's written since this book. I don't think he has. I think I would have noticed. But a fugitive collection of short stories as a half-hearted attempt to stay relevant. Maybe that exists and I just missed it. But this was a good debut. It was well praised, and I liked it. Just have no idea what becomes of such a thing. I mean, no one's ever going to reprint this. Why would they? Unless he has a gigantic hit. Why would they? So you'd have to sort of find this. And where would you find it? A thing like this, I would never find this at a used bookstore. Kind of wish I'd kept it for that. Okay, all right. All right, this next one is a kid/YA, another kid/YA, and much like Because of Winn, Dixie, it is a classic, an absolute classic. It does nothing wrong. It is just beautiful. It's a very different kind of thing, mainly because it centers on a different kind of animal. This is, of course, the classic Binicula, where a family... Those of you who know this book are cheering and laughing right now, right alongside me, because it's one of those books that you instantly love. It changes your whole face when you read it. You instantly love it. You instantly want to meet other people who know it, and no one who reads it doesn't love it. It was a family who gets a bunny, and the bunny is the bunny a little evil? Is the bunny otherworldly? is the bunny actually a Binicula? Or is there perhaps a different culprit? Perhaps the most predictable culprit of all has been staring us in the face all along. Well, you're going to have to read the book to find out. I think I have a copy of Binicula here somewhere. It isn't this copy. But the covers of Binicula are always hilarious to look at. They vary just a little from version to version. But I don't know for sure. If I don't, I absolutely should. In fact, when I go to the bookstore and check on Because of Winn, Dixie, I'll see what the new Binicula looks like. Be fun to buy them both together. This next one is a weird book. This is by Esther Wolfson, and it's called Corvus, A Life with Birds. And the author writes about rescuing birds, living with birds, all kinds, not just crows or ravens, but all kinds of birds. And some of the writing is very passionate, very spirited, but there are undertones in this book that seemed very all about her. That seemed all about Eve in a way that was really queasy inducing. The author writes really well about birds, and she seems compassionate about birds, except when she's not. And the narrative sort of impression that runs throughout this book seems to be, okay, yeah, birds are smart, really smart, and they're really endearing and adorable. I've got tons of idiosyncratic habits, but what about me? Shouldn't this narrative get back to me and what a lovable doofus I am? I would throw this on the mercy of the court. If you read it, tell me if you didn't have the same ambivalent reaction to it. I had a weird reaction to this book. Not sure that I would get it again if I found it at a used bookstore. Now this next one I'm never going to see at a used bookstore. This is by Lauren Baratz Logstead, and it's called Crazy Beautiful. And it's it's the story of a young man who doesn't have any arms. He has mechanical arms with hooks at the end instead of his actual arms. And that has, as you might expect, had deep psychological impacts on him. And he meets a young woman who doesn't care. She's only interested in him personally, in who he is, what he likes and doesn't like, all that sort of thing. She's certainly not put off by his disfigurement, by the fact that he has hooks instead of hands. She's not put off by that at all. And you get the impression in this book, it's fairly well done. I liked it. I would certainly get it again if I found it. You get the impression that not only does the main character not ever expect to meet someone like that, but that, like a lot of people who feel ostracized, or as the 21st century loathsomely puts it, othered by society in general, starts to become possessive of that fact. They become bitter about that and sort of proud about it. You get that impression that the man in this book is that way before he meets his love interest, and then what happens is pleasingly complex. I very much enjoyed it. No idea where it went to. I don't think I ever got... I don't know that it was ever mainstream published, so I don't know that I ever got a maybe this was an ebook that I got really cheap or free on Amazon years and years ago. I don't know. And then this next one is a One World Classic. We're encountering a lot of those. I used to be on their list. I don't know that One World Classic exists anymore. But they used to do great reprint work. A perfect example of how to do reprints. Off the beaten path, great new people to write new introductions, and have an editorial vision that you stick to. Plus, great cover designs, which never hurts. I was on their mailing list 15 years ago and got lots of stuff from them. Never got anything I didn't love. Even their Praise of Folly by Erasmus is just wonderful. And this is Dark Avenues by Ivan Bunin, translated by Hugh Aplin. Dark Avenues. And seeing it here made me wish that I had this volume more than ever, because I just read and wrote up Helen Rappaport's new book, After the Romanovs, about all the Russian exiles that flooded into Paris in the wake of the Russian revolutions and the assassination of the Romanovs, the end of the Romanov dynasty. And this character, Ivan Bunin, and his partner, Vera, are major characters in that book, which made me wish, when I was reading that book, when I was finished with it, I read the advanced copy and then I read the finished copy. And when I was finished with it, I really wanted to be able to pull a book of Bunin's stories off the shelf and read them again. And I don't have anything by him at all. I don't have this. This is a collection of short stories that are really good. The translation, if I remember correctly, is really, really good. But it's gone along the way. Must have gone to maybe a literary friend. I mean, back then when I would have got this in the mail, I was the managing editor for Open Letters Monthly, which was the online precursor to Open Letters Review. And it was a very different kind of thing. I was the managing editor for with a large number of people very actively involved, which is not entirely the case with Open Letters Review, which meant that if I got something in the mail, right now, if I get something in the mail, the distributive part of my personality is talking to you. It's not really talking to my fellow editors at Open Letters Review, who are largely expected to fend for themselves. Instead, it's talking to you. If you see something on this channel, would you be interested in me sending it to you? Maybe for you to review, for me. But Open Letters Monthly was far more pluralistic than that. And so a lot of the stuff that I got did go out to other people. That's my best guess why I don't have this One World Classic anymore. And I didn't do my research ahead of time. I try not to do that because I don't really want to, front load these libraries of the lost with lots of research, because then I know I won't do it. But I haven't researched to see if One World Classics is still around, if they're still doing this stuff. I can't believe that they are. I think I would know that. They would have shown up on, for instance, every year for Steve Reads, my literary blog, Steve Reads, I do a year's best and worst books. And one whole category is works in translation and reprints, both of them. You'd think One World Classics would have cropped up on those lists sometime in the last 10 years, and they haven't. So I'm guessing that they closed shop. But anyway, that is the Library of Lost for today. We will continue with one more of these tomorrow, and then we'll go back to pulling books off shelves here in my library tour. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.